Good evening and welcome to the June Wealth Advisory Review. I hope you've had a great month as we start the summer. I hope you've got some great vacation plans, and I hope that what we talk about tonight gives you some confidence or some comfort as we go forward through the summer and make so you can have a really wonderful vacation season with family and friends. Because we do have some decent news to report tonight, and I want to go through that with you. As always, we take a moment to remind you that everything we discuss on this advisory review is for your benefit. It is designed to give you information, to hopefully give you questions, maybe some answers, but questions to think about regarding how the risk reward is set up for your portfolio, how your investments are working and how instrumental they are to your long-term planning needs, how your insurance programs and risk management programs are also instrumental, how tax issues are so critical to what you and I do, and how understanding the long-term implications of changes in markets and accounts and lifestyle and all kinds of things can really adjust our numbers. And to make wise decisions, we need to be thinking ahead, not just in the long term, but also the mid and the short term as well. So if there's questions that come up regarding tax issues or legal issues or investment risk issues, please feel free to reach out and ask us. We'll be happy to talk with you, or if it regards tax issues or legal issues, be happy to talk with your accountant or your attorney or anybody on your team that helps you accomplish your long-term goals. As always, there'll be a time for questions. You can either ask a question by raising your hand, in which case I'll hit that button and be able to possibly even allow you to speak through. It depends on your computer and how it's set up, but if you can, be happy to answer your question via voice. Or if you're not able to do that, you can certainly type in the chat what your question is, and I'll take time to answer that as well. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the market and economic review. I'm going to, excuse me. I'm going to continue our discussion about the curves of your retirement journey. We're going to talk about something that I've mentioned briefly in the past, but I'm going to spend a little more energy on tonight, what's called the sequence of return risk and how that can impact your entire retirement. We're going to take a look at tax-efficient wealth advisory thinking, navigating your retirement successfully with ROL or return on life. I'll kind of recap all of our thoughts, remind you of the website resources we have, and then answer any questions you have. So that's the goal for tonight, be done by 6:30, if not a few minutes sooner. Regarding the primary engines of the US economy and economic growth, nothing really has changed at this point in time. GDP growth still is estimated to be a positive for Q2. I am beginning to see information that indicates that maybe Q3 or Q4 may be very flat or slightly positive still, and we might be looking at the recession moving into 24. Again, it's very hard to say with all of the economic data out there. The Fed did take a pause on raising interest rates, and that was helpful. We are seeing various pieces to this conversation. Inflation has come down, but still is very high. We've seen a lot of individual and corporate spending drop, which doesn't bode well for how the future of the economy looks, at least over the next couple of quarters. But having said all of that, the current GDP growth estimate is still a positive, and I think that there is a growing sense that this could be a more mild and possibly short-term recession. Again, more data and more information each month. We pull together pieces that give us better feelings for where we're headed, but at this point in time, I'm still optimistic that it may be a short-term and shallow recession. Business profitability we placed as a minus. Remember, you can have plus, minus, or minus. We place it as a minus because corporations with tax issues, with employment issues, with borrowing money for capital positions, and a number of other factors has really kind of bitten into corporate profitability. It does seem to be stabilizing a bit, but we're still counting it as a negative. So on the plane, we'd count that engine as being sort of flamed out right now. That's probably a little hyperbolic. I don't think it actually is flamed out. It's just not running at peak efficiency. Unemployment rates still are very good. I know that we are facing underemployment, and I know that as I talk to a number of business owners, getting employees has been more of a challenging time. There's a whole issue of going back to work rather than staying home and working from home. Employers are battling that. But having said all of that, we do find that unemployment rates are still low and historically low, and we're thinking that's a positive for how the economy is functioning. And then finally, interest rates, as I mentioned a moment ago, the Fed decided to take a pause this time, but they do think that it's possible they'll raise rates again. It depends on how the economy goes and how the markets go. But we're seeing that as still a plus minus, because with interest rates being as high as they are, even though it has slowed down for a moment, that is bad for business, but it is good for individuals. I was just visiting with a client today who is so happy with the interest rates they're getting on their fixed accounts and cash reserve accounts. So it's a plus minus, a plus for the individual, a minus for the economy. But again, that may not be a problem, especially if the Fed is open to lowering interest rates again, say 2024. Now, you may remember from last month when I reviewed this with you, we were just about in here, and I was saying to you that we were hitting this high. We'd bounced up and tested this position in the market a few times now, and that with the rising, the fact that the 50-day moving average was moving positive, we were seeing that the 200-day moving average was moving positive, and in between our last conversation, our last advisory review and this one, it did break through that ceiling of resistance and is headed up much higher. We can certainly see with the short MACD, or moving average convergence divergence, it has taken off very nicely. We do see that a fair amount of volume happened here on a sell versus this downturn we had here. But again, not too far off track. I do think this has been a very nice run up, and I think the question on all of our minds is, with the pending recession or whatever that actually ends up looking like, will that drag the markets back down again, maybe back down below this, what would now be a floor of support? Would it take it on down back through the 50-day moving average and 200-day moving average? And again, those are pieces that we're not going to know until we get some more data in from corporations, from lending rates, from consumer purchases and corporate purchases and so on. But at this point, I'm remaining optimistic that it will hold, with an expectation that it might drop, but not be a big drop this time around. We'll wait and see. Having said that, there's really not much more energy to spend on the markets and the economy at this point. It's humming along okay. We've certainly seen better times, but we've seen worse times as well. And so what we'll do is save any more conversation on this topic for our July advisory, and maybe we'll have even better news to report, or similar news, or maybe worse news, but we'll go through that. That's one of the reasons that I offer this discussion with you on the third Tuesday of every month, so that way you have the ability to know what's going on and understand how it might relate to your portfolio, so that you can make wise decisions when it comes to your family wealth as well. As we've been talking the last couple of months, I've wanted to share discussions about how we're treating your financial journey, how we're looking at wealth advisory from a fiduciary viewpoint, saying that we're trying to understand you and your needs in the best way possible by creating a financial plan that identifies your short, mid, and long-term needs, and then is able to implement those feelings and desires that you have with the facts of your situation when it comes to creating and growing wealth, as well as protecting and preserving wealth. Those three phases that we all go through, as you can see, we start on the accumulation phase, climbing up the mountain. At some point, we plant the flag. We say, hey, I'm ready to retire, or what we call redirect. And then we start living off the fruits of our labor, the nest egg that we have built up. And in those first 5 years, I've referenced before how the sequence of return risk is so critical. We're going to talk more about that tonight. We talk about how when you go down the mountain, you're decumulating now. Instead of building wealth, you're pulling wealth out. Now, you may still be building wealth if you have enough assets and your income and your outgo are such that you're not needing to pull from your assets very much. Nonetheless, you may be pulling something from the accounts, in which case the accounts would be not growing as fast as they were before, or maybe going backwards. We want to stay on top of that. Then finally, as we get to the end of this phase, we move into the end of life risk, which would be those financial issues like incapacitation, incompetency, all those things that can cost a lot more money, health issues, long-term care issues, etc. And so those represent the last piece of that discussion. And then finally, after you and your spouse have passed, then transferring, the third phase, transferring those resources to the people that you love and care for. And that's what we're working on here when we look at the three phases of your financial journey. As I've said to you many times before, direction determines destination. And when we put together your planning interpolation, your baseline, your stress tested analysis, we're trying to give you insight into what direction your destination is aimed at. And so you can make a good decision with that as well. And then finally, back to what I said a moment ago, what is your desired return on life? What is your bucket list? And what are the life transitional issues that we want to focus on, or you want to focus on through each of these phases to make sure that you are accomplishing what you feel called to accomplish. So that's where this all comes from as we take a look at fiduciary wealth advisory. Now, the curves of your retirement, I'm not going to spend a lot of energy on it, but I did want to refresh for those who are new tonight and didn't get to hear last month's webinar. You can go to the website. I don't know if it's loaded up yet, but it should be within a day or two, and you can review the curves of retirement discussion we had before and how we help people to create, grow, protect, and preserve wealth for them and their families in today's economy. So the quick reminder is that we see three types of curves in your retirement journey. The first is a runaway green curve. That's a percentage of the population who their income is more than their outgo, or if it's not, the amount of assets they have can easily offset that and their wealth can still keep growing. The second curve we see is a red curve that runs out of money, and it runs out of money before you run out of life. And that's a curve where income and outgo are out of line and the assets aren't great enough to support it. And so what we want to do with that curve is try to figure out how do we bend it up to make it so it gets closer to a purple healthy curve. And a purple healthy curve is this curve right here. And that's the one where your wealth continues to grow, but somewhere in your mid 80s or so, as the rising cost of living begins to catch up, it might turn over and start to turn down a bit. It doesn't mean you'll run out of money, but it does mean that that curve is a curve that's meeting your needs today, midterm and long term as well, which now brings you back to the green curve. One of the things that we try to do with that curve for those people who have that runaway green curve is say to them, hey, why don't you maybe look at spending a little more money? Maybe do a few more things on your bucket list. Maybe enjoy life more. Maybe do some more giving to family or charity that you care about. Because again, as we take our last few breaths of air on this planet, our focus shouldn't be on the fact that, oh, I've got $8 million. Our focus is going to be more on, did I accomplish all that I wanted to with what I had? And that's what we try to do, is to help people think through that process. I think that it wouldn't be uncommon or unrealistic to think that there's a large portion of the financial industry that really just wants you to grow wealth, grow wealth, grow wealth. And I do get that. But our goal here is to help you to achieve the return on life you want while you're getting the return on investment that you need. And so as we work on bending that green curve down, it's about helping you achieve your goals, accomplish your plans, and have enough financial resources to last your life, both in good times and in bad times. So that brings us to the concept of what we talked about last time called the baseline financial plan. And that's what we create with everybody, is a baseline financial plan. All of our financial planning clients know what their baseline is, and that is their most likely realistic best case scenario. It's an evaluation of a person's income and outgo, as well as what they own and owe. And we extrapolate that into the future to identify a trajectory of their possible financial destination. And that's their best case, realistic, most likely scenario. But then, because we know that life throws curveballs at us, we can stress test that baseline plan, where we run it against certain issues, poor economic or investment performance, along with looking at investment opportunities or risk that may challenge our portfolio, taxable, tax deferred, and tax advantage strategies for family wealth, and how to make it so that you can maximize that keeping more for the people you care about and less going to the IRS. Loss of income or capital or both due to premature death or disability, health or long-term care issues, property and casualty or business issues if you own a business. We look at how to stress test what you have against that so you have a good plan to protect and preserve wealth in the process of growing it over your lifetime. Take a look at children or grandchildren's educational goals and add those in to stress test it. Maybe you could do some giving early on to help children or grandchildren. We want you to be aware of that so you can take advantage of it. Estate design strategies on how to maximize future family wealth, both in the decumulation phase where you might be handing it out to families sooner. I think the phrase I would use is do your giving while you're living so you're knowing where it's going. And then also after you've passed away, where is it going then and how do you want it to be distributed? And is the plan you have going to accomplish what you want, and will it do it in the most tax efficient manner? For those of you that own businesses, business succession planning and how that fits with your personal financial planning for family wealth, and as well as many, many more things that we attach to your return on life goals. So with those pieces, we create a baseline financial plan, and then after that is a solid, you feel good about the data, it makes sense to you, then we stress test it against things that are important in your situation or ideas or issues that we identify should be important for you to consider. So managing sequence of return risk, that was right there at the top of the mountain on the other side of retirement or redirection, where what that really says is this, that when a person retires, the first 5 years of their financial plan and the distributions from their retirement assets or investment assets is critical. If you have a very bad market experience in, say, 2 or 3 of those first 5 years, it can absolutely blow up your financial plan and your investment portfolio strategies later on in life. You may know of somebody, I mentioned this one other time, you may have known of somebody that in 2001 or 2008 who had retired, and then a few years later they were back working again because their portfolio had not been designed well enough to offset the sequence of return risk. And so when we're putting together our clients' plans, we want to make sure that we've stress tested against that as well. So now to give you some thinking on how that is, we have our fictional couple, Harry and Mary Arm, and we are looking at their what we call their unique personalized possibilities are up. We're doing it on what's called a linear review here. A linear review means that we've just applied fixed interest rates to their different asset groups and said, well, what if they got that every year? And so that may be accurate, it may not, time will tell, but it does at least show us a pattern, a direction and a destination. And as you can see, Harry and Mary have roughly a healthy purple curve here. They start out at about $1.5 million, and when they take their last few breaths of air at age 100, you might say, I'm not going to live that long, but that's okay. In Harry and Mary's case, they think they will. Then we look at here that they still have about $1.5 million. So they've lived life, done what they wanted to, and they had a great curve with it. So what we did then is we said, well, so let's test it against distributions and think about the first 5 to 7 years of retirement and see how that impacts their long-term goals, because this looks excellent. This is great. I'm glad for this. But what if things don't work out like we'd like for them to? So what we did is we took and applied an average market experience to their portfolio, saying it wasn't really a great market, but it wasn't really a bad market. And so what did that look like? Not saying, oh, if we've identified a 7% return on one of their accounts, it's not going to do 7% every year. Interest rates will change, the markets will change, bonds will change, stocks will change, real estate will change. And so this mixture that you're seeing here on the screen is just taking an average of the mix of their portfolio. And you'll notice that it still works out. The data looks good. It still works well. But I want you to notice something else down here. It says probability of success is 57%. Now, what that means is this, is that if the bad years, you can see on this spectrum here, you've got good years and bad years and so on. If those bad years happened in the first 5 to 7 years of their retirement, then there are times when they wouldn't make it. they would run out of money before they run out of month. Now, with the linear approach, they looked wonderful. With the average market approach, they still look wonderful. But when you start shifting around the good years and the bad years over that roughly 50-year period of time, you begin to realize that if those happen early on in the portfolio mixture, it reduces their chance of success. I can tell you as a planner, I personally don't like to see anybody's numbers below 95%. And I obviously would prefer 100%. But if we see 57%, it means that we have to really start looking at, especially in light of this sort of stress test, are we pulling out too much? Should we adjust the portfolio distributions? Especially if we have some bad years early on, should we think more carefully about how we might handle those? Would it adjust when Harry and Mary decide to retire? Or would it adjust their current income needs or expenses? Or would we devise their portfolio a little differently to improve these numbers? And these are all ideas that we can test in the analysis. We can run various scenarios, say, well, if we made this change, what does that make the new probability of success? If we make this change, what does it do? Because in the end, it really comes down to a few things. How long till I retire? How much money will I need at retirement? How much am I saving? And how much am I earning on my retirement or long-term investment portfolio? Those pieces all can be adjusted, not just one of them, maybe two or three of them, and bring a totally different outcome here. I don't think that most people stop and think of sequence of return risk in this way because they haven't really thought about it. Yet I suspect that many people know people that had to go back to work after they retired because they hadn't thought this part through carefully enough. So this is one of the very first stress tests we do to our clients' portfolio. Again, we look at their unique personalized possibilities, or UP, and then we take a look at what we call NPV squared, their net present value and their net potential value. So then as they're making investment decisions and distribution decisions and tax management decisions and risk management decisions, they have a good plan in place to make sure they're wisely managing this very important piece. So if you take this a little further, what you can do, now you can see the way this graph works. And so what you're really seeing here is this. The black line represents that average market experience I was telling you about before. That's if everything is just sort of average, nothing super great, nothing super bad. It just kind of works out. On the other hand, this blue line up here, this is one standard deviation above the market performance, meaning that the markets did better by a standard deviation. In this case, you'll notice here it says about 30% better, not in performance, but overall year to year. It did better, and you can see that that created a significant runaway green curve. And then you'll see over here, this one is one standard deviation below, saying the market did 20% of what it would normally do. And you can see we run out of money here somewhere around 2063. And the spread between this wonderful number up here and this terrible number down here is a $26.6 million portfolio versus a $7.4 million loss. Now, the reality is this is only the investment portfolio. If the person has other income, if they're drawing Social Security, if they've got pension plans, if they've got other resources, not their investments, they're drawing from income, it doesn't mean that they don't have income coming in. They still do. They just may not have any other assets or investment portfolios to draw from to do extra things if they want to. And that's why we want to take time to review the sequence of return risk for clients to make sure that they're thinking through carefully what their direction looks like when we look out long-term at their destination. So now that's one very important piece, understanding market impacts on your retirement plans and your investment portfolio and so on. But tax efficient wealth advisory is just as critical in my thinking. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I think a lot of times people think in terms of, well, well, what is my investment advisor charging me? Well, that's a great question, and you should know that. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't. Or they'll think about, what's the market doing? Is the stock market off 10%? How's that impacting me? And again, also, very good question. One of the reasons why I talked about sequence of return risk first. But what I would say, though, is that tax-efficient wealth advisory may be the biggest expense that most people experience. Taxes are the #1 expense many Americans will pay during their lifetime. I could put all Americans, but I don't know if that's accurate. But I do know it might be fair to say most, but it certainly is absolutely fair to say many. When you consider sales tax, income tax, state tax, property tax, even taxes on your cell phone and things of that nature, the #1 tax that we pay, or the #1 expense that we all pay in most cases is taxes. When it comes to your investment portfolio, while that isn't going to impact, your property taxes or your cell phone taxes, there are things we can do here to help minimize that. And this is, again, back to Harry and Mary Arm. This is still the same planning information I was looking at before. And so what I would suggest to you is thinking through carefully what this tax bill looks like would be absolutely essential to making sure that you have more money on your side of the balance sheet than what you've handed off to state and federal government institutions. If you look down here, you'll see that the cumulative tax, if Harry and Mary lived to age 100, their cumulative tax is $5,115,000. The portfolio they have left is $1,481,000. These two are connected. If we reduce this number, we increase this number. And so thinking through carefully what all of these tax bills add up to, and then thinking carefully about how we might reduce them both currently and maybe even more importantly into the future, is essential for creating a tax-efficient portfolio strategy. See, every dollar you and I have is going to go in one of 3 buckets. It's either going to go into a taxable bucket, a tax deferred, or what I would call a tax postponed bucket, and a tax advantaged bucket. Now, the tax deferred, that's like qualified plans and those types of programs. We say it's tax deferred, and at some level we sort of think to ourselves, well, when I retire, I won't be in the same tax bracket I'm in. And that may be true for some people. But for a moment, think about it. If you are going to retire in 5 years and you're living on, you put the number there, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, I don't really, whatever that number is for you is fine. And then you say, well, the day I retire, I'm going to live on less. I'm going to live on 25,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. Okay, if that's the case, then you're right, your tax bill will go down. But the problem is most people kind of think that when they retire, they're still going to have the same lifestyle they had before, and maybe even more of it, because instead of spending 40 hours a week on some job, they're actually going to be doing a lot more things. They'll have more free time. And unless they think they're going to sit in the lazy boy and watch TV all day, they probably have some plans to go some places, and they might be spending up more money than they were before. So recognizing that how we invest our dollars, taxably, tax postponed or deferred, or tax advantage, has a huge impact on what this number is. And learning how to get more money into the tax advantaged accounts rather than the tax deferred or the taxable may be a way to help grow wealth faster. One more thought on the tax postponed or tax deferred accounts. Not only are we deferring the tax to some later date, but we're also deferring the tax calculation to some later date. So let's say that the tax rates now are 25% and I retire in 10 years. Well, what will I do if the tax rates are not 25%, but now they're 35%? That means I'll have even more tax I have to pay. And for many people, when they retire, they have less tax reduction strategies they can do. They can't do their qualified plan anymore. They may have paid off their mortgage, so they don't have interest write-offs. So they might even be in a higher tax bracket. So when I say to you, utilizing right here, utilizing taxable, tax postponed, and tax advantaged investment strategies intelligently, it is crucial to managing family wealth wisely. Now, I took this box right here and I ran from here to here because we don't all think we're going to live to age 100. And the tax bill here is $2.6 million, meaning that over all those years, I gave to the IRS $2.6 million. Now, again, maybe your situation is different than Harry and Mary's. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more. Maybe instead of you being 2.6 million, you're 260,000 that you give to the IRS. Or maybe you're more than that. The bottom line is, if there was a way that you could keep more of that money on your side of the balance sheet over here and less going to them, is that something you'd like to do? And assuming that you're on the other end of this call and you're shaking your head yes, the reality is there are things you can do, but you have to start planning ahead. It's not tax evasion, it's tax avoidance. Tax evasion puts you in jail. Tax avoidance just grows your family wealth as long as you're using legal, moral, and ethical strategies for reducing taxes, and there are quite a few. You can keep more on your side of the balance sheet. So in this case here, looking for tax efficient opportunities to grow wealth wisely means that every dollar you don't send here could be added over here for you and for your family in that final stage of your financial journey. Now, not only are we looking at the income taxes you pay during your life, and this is again is for Harry and Mary Arm, it's the same as before. What you're looking at is this, is that we've taken this out to Harry's age 85 and Mary's age 79. And we've taken a look at their portfolios. And so Mary's net worth and Harry's net worth. And then if Harry passed away, have funeral expenses, that'd be about all there would be. The inheritance of what was Harry's would now come to Mary. So now this is Mary's total estate. Then we'll say that Mary passes away a few months after that or a year after that. So what we find is that Mary's estate, while it's still 7.8 million, 2 million, or down here, $2,192,000 goes to taxes, and 5,640,000 goes to heirs. Now again, if these numbers seem huge to you, just think of it this way: if instead of 2,192,000, it was 219,000 going to the IRS. And instead of your kids getting 560,000, they would have actually gotten the whole 780,000. Again, it matters. It's big, it's huge. It's tax efficient wealth strategies can move money from one side of the balance sheet to the other. Now you might say, well, goodness, Frank, I thought that they had fixed all this estate stuff, so it wasn't really an issue. Well, what this really is attached to in Harry and Mary's case is a tax on income with respect to decedent, what's called IRD. And it kind of goes back to that same problem again of tax postponed investments. So when you get down the road and you turn 73 or 74, depends on how the government has it set up that time, you have to start taking something called RMD. This is why you're still alive, required minimum distribution. The IRS demands that you pull money from that account and pay them taxes. If by the time you pass, you have pulled all the money from that account, then they're going to let you transfer whatever you have to your heirs. And again, it won't have any taxes from qualified plans like IRAs or 401ks or 403bs or goodness gracious, annuities have some tax deferral, tax postponement on them. So do some government bonds do. All those things are subject to IRD, making sure that you don't pay taxes that you don't have to pay. So this is tax due on the remaining portions of Harry and Mary's qualified plans, IRAs, etc. So 2 million, not estate tax, zero estate tax, probate expense, 114,000. If we do some things, or if they work with their attorney to set up certain types of trusts, they can reduce that significantly as well. This one here, though, they could take some time and look through their estate planning as well as their tax planning year by year and systematically reduce this so the IRS doesn't get all of this money. The IRS is going to get some money. There's no way to get all of it gone, but you can significantly reduce this. Now, if we put both of these together, the cumulative income tax off of their IRA accounts, qualified plans, and 401ks and 403bs and so on, and we add the IRD tax that's due off of those plans at both of their passing, that's $4.7 million of lifetime taxes paid. Hopefully, you're starting to get the picture that even if you take off a couple of these zeros and make it 260,000 and 470,000, that's still a lot of money to pay to the IRS. And with some wise planning and utilization of tax advantage and maybe changing how you're doing your tax deferred and or postponed and thinking carefully about the taxable accounts, those are all dollars you can keep on your side of the balance sheet and go to your heirs and not to the IRS for the taxes due, income taxes off of these type of accounts. And I would note that we're only talking income taxes right now. We're not talking capital gains taxes. We're not talking estate taxes. We're not talking any of the other sort of taxes that are out there. We're just talking income taxes, both during life and at passing. And so anything that you or I can do to minimize this helps create that tax efficient wealth approach. So now, I talked about it a little bit last time, but again, I want to remind you that while the facts and figures are obviously critical here, return on investment, ROI, return on assets, ROA, return on equity, ROE, those are critical components of any financial plan. Creating, growing, protecting, and preserving wealth is essential to us managing wealth wisely, managing family wealth wisely. But in the end, we're going to want to make sure that we have ROL, return on life. And as I said to you last time, these are a number of things that we apply towards your retirementality. This is envisioning your return on life. And this is a little resource that we use when you're doing your financial plan to help you begin thinking about a number of items that you'd like to do more in retirement, things that maybe you don't have time to do now. Or maybe as you look at a partial retirement or redirection, you might be able to start inserting some of these things. Travel, go explore some areas you'd like to look at, play, write, educate yourself, go back to school, teach, relax, mentor someone, learn a new skill, develop a hobby, finish an unfinished project. There might be a couple of honey-do lists out there that need to be done. Home projects, more time with spouse, more time with family, more time with friends. Maybe a part-time job that's different than the job you're doing now. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that they are, they're not necessarily fond of the job they have, but there is another job they'd like to do. And in that retirement, redirectional phase of life, we can help them see how they could do that job and maybe get rid of the job they don't like. Maybe you could consult. Maybe you have a real valuable skill set that your company or other companies like your company would pay for. Continue on your present course. Maybe you want to keep working because you enjoy working for pay, not just service. Maybe you want to start a new business, connect with some cause you believe in, or volunteer, get more involved in community, or take on some new challenge. Oftentimes, the problem that people have when it comes to retirement is they don't really know what they're going to do. They just have been so focused on the here and now and what's due today that they haven't thought much about what they could do if they had more free time. And that's what this is about, considering your possibilities. Some would call it your bucket list, identifying things you'd like to do. Sometimes these things are bucket list items, sometimes they're just transitional. You know, in the next few years, you're going to want to do this and you want to work yourself up to it by making some wise decisions. Because if you're, say, 45 today, in 10 years, you're going to be 55. Another 10 years, you're going to be 65. Another 10 years, you're going to be 75. And as that time marches on, you want to make sure that you've been thinking carefully about each step so you get the most out of it. So this, we find, helps people as they look at what their ROL, their bucket list, and their transitional lists look like. This helps them with identifying their retirementality as they envision for the future. Maybe another way to think about it, though, is still your retirementality, but finding your return on life balance. So another tool that we have that our planning clients use is taking a look at how your current time works, your current life portfolio of times, how many hours in a week And remember, there's 168 hours. You have 168 hours this week. I have 168 hours this week. How we divide up our time with family and friends, work and career, downtime, sleep, health, fitness, personal growth, hobbies, etc. How we break up that time now as our current life portfolio looks, and how we could change it to what our desired portfolio would look is just another part of envisioning and developing your ROL balance. So it's not just it's a one and done, it's a process of helping people think through how do we identify with their baseline financial plan. Are they on track? Does their direction and destination match what they're looking for? As we stress test it, is everything going to be okay? Does it look right? As we start to look at how we can handle issues like sequence of risk and tax management strategies, as we take a look at these various pieces, can we actually add more back to your family wealth? And then taking those results, those resources, and now applying them to your desired life portfolio with the bucket list you have. That's what financial planning should be. That's how developing a return on life financial plan is different than just doing a bunch of calculations. As I shared with you before, I won't spend a huge amount of time on it, but just as a quick reminder that all of us have a universe of knowledge that we have gained at this point in our life. It's that circle that maintains things that we know to be true, things that we know about but really don't know what they are exactly. Then we have our blind spot, the stuff we haven't even thought about. And that was my goal tonight, is to talk about some blind spot issues that might help you to identify how you could adjust some of your pieces to achieve the life that you have, the family life, the financial life, family wealth, all the pieces you're looking for. And so my goal, as always, is to help add, and this is what our firm's all about, helping you transfer knowledge from what we've done in our School of Hard Knocks, working with people over all these decades, to help you maybe avoid those School of Hard Knocks and accomplish what you want to do. This is what we believe to be fiduciary wealth advisory, starting with a foundational return on life financial plan that's thinking through the feelings and desires you have and where you want to go, and then blending those with your portfolio management for creating and growing wealth, and then blending in your risk management solutions for protecting and preserving wealth and helping you make wise decisions along the way. To me, that's how we can actually help clients maximize what they have and achieve their goals for their family, for their life, and for their family life as they transfer wealth over time. So here's the things we've covered tonight. We've talked about the 3 curves of retirement again, and hopefully everybody on the call, although if there's a couple of new people who aren't aware, you can sit down with us, be happy to get you information to see whether or not you have a healthy purple curve, a runaway green curve, or a red curve, and help you start looking at how to manage that even better. Next item we covered is intelligent planning can assess your retirement curve and identify your family's current financial direction and possible financial destinations. Intelligent planning can help reduce the sequence of risk impacting your retirement planning. Intelligent planning can help you identify tax-efficient strategies for managing family wealth. You may have thought, I wonder why you're not showing us some of these different strategies. Well, that will be something that we do in upcoming webinars and wealth advisories. But in order to be able to get the pieces in, I thought it might make sense to kind of do an overview, because quite honestly, each of you have different situations. Some of you own businesses, some of you don't. Some of you are executives or employees with retirement plans. Some of you, your biggest asset is your business. Some of you make huge amounts of money. Some of you aren't making as much money. And some of you have big plans for the future, and some of you are just starting to think that out. And so going through all the tax pieces, I decided I'd save that for another sort of special event we're going to do with clients that I think we can show pieces that might fit better with their particular needs in a small group setting. ROL, return on life. Those goals add your desires and feelings to the facts and figures that contribute to your family's financial future. And fiduciary wealth advisory requires a dynamic financial planning strategy to help you and your family manage wealth intelligently in today's complex economic environment. That's what I was aiming at presenting tonight, and hopefully you picked up a few pieces that were outside your box that could help you do an even better job. The resources that we provide to all of our clients, your financial dashboard, if you're not using it, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you use it. There is an introductory or foundational version that we give to all clients. And then for those who want financial planning, there is a fee for the plan, but it is a much deeper dive and helps identify all these pieces in a much more direct and relevant way for where you are. All of our clients have access to their portfolio dashboard, which shows them how the money they have with us, what we would call assets under management that we directly manage for you, shows you how they're working, how they're divided up, what's going on with them. Again, another resource available for you. Your risk reward evaluation helps you understand how your different assets are matching up with your risk tolerance and your reward goal desires. And so we can do that both with assets you have with us, assets under management, and with assets you don't have with us, assets held away. You can use this application to help you identify, are you invested appropriately for your own risk tolerance, or are you out of line with what you should be? And then finally, your return on life planning app. This is the one where we identify your bucket list, your transitional list, your retirement mentality, and the various pieces that make it so you can have a good plan and you can have a good plan and do good while you're planning wisely. So this is that place where I'm kind of giving you a heads up. I'm going to do questions. I'll answer any questions you have. Again, a lot of times you don't really have any questions, but if you do, I'm here for you. As I've often joked, if you don't have any questions, either because I did such a great job, you understand it all, or I've done such a terrible job, you're so confused you don't even know what to ask. But I'm going to move on from this, but if you have questions, I'm watching over to the side panel to know if I need to pull that up and answer any questions for you. Our next Financial Journey Wealth Advisory Review is July 18th at 5:30, just like always. We're going to talk about the items, and depending upon what's going on in the market and the economy and where we are with various things, we might spend more time on market fundamental and technical analytics, might spend more time on creating, growing, protecting, and preserving wealth, might spend more time on planning, investment, and insurance solutions, and then we'll always, as always, take time to answer your questions. So hopefully now you have seen the review for the market and economy. Again, I'll be updating that next month as we get new information. And as always, if anything drastic or catastrophic happens, we'll let you know and do something in the middle. We're not going to wait until next month to do this if something major happens. Hopefully you're starting to get a solid feeling, if this is your first time hearing it, about the curves of your retirement journey and the managing of your sequence of return risk, as well as some ideas for tax-efficient wealth advisory and the importance of it. Navigating your retirement successfully with ROL, went through my thoughts with you. I reminded you of the thoughts of the resources and applications that we have available to all of our clients. And I don't see any questions yet. And I've reminded you of the next investor advisory review. Let's see here. Whoa, I did good, 6:20. So I got 10 minutes early, so I got time for a few questions if you would like. If I don't see anything here in a few minutes, I'm probably just going to go ahead and close out early. As always, and we've had several who've taken advantage of this, if you'd like to invite some of your friends to attend these workshops, they can. It's complimentary. We're not calling them and chasing them down and say, hey, you saw the webinar, you want to work with us. We just share information, and hopefully that information is helping them. And if they want to reach out and talk to us, we'd be honored to talk to them because they're your friends and you recommended them. But if you do, we'll send them an invite. They're welcome to attend, and there's no pressure for them to talk to us after that. So I'm just saying that, reiterating, because I just want you to get it, that this is just us educating everybody to make it so that they can achieve the return on life they're looking for, just like we're trying to help you do. So if you have anybody in mind, just let Kayla know. That's Kayla at Frank's office, or you can call us at 386-248-2121. And in any of these events, we'll be happy to help you. And certainly you can visit the website at frankreynoldscompany.com, all one word there, and take a look at what's going on. All right, I don't see any questions, so I'm assuming that you have got what you need tonight and that everything is good. I think I'm going to go have some dinner and enjoy the rest of the evening, although I've got some other office work I got to finish up. But then after that, I'm going to enjoy the rest of the evening, maybe even be able to get a workout in tonight. That's what my hope is. So until we talk next, I hope you're having a great week. And if you got some vacation plans, enjoy them. I'll look forward to hearing about that. But until next month, if I don't talk to you then, I'll look forward to seeing you at that time. So have a great night, and I'll look forward to talking then. God bless.